Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, music listeners. It's about to be 2024, so that means we're going to be going through my personal top 10 albums of 2023. Let's get right into it. At the number 10 spot on my list, I have This Is Why by Paramore. Now, this album could have been a little bit higher up on the list, but it's a relatively short album with only 10 tracks, and there were a couple tracks I weren't so crazy about, like, say, Komika. But there were a lot of tracks on here that I did like, and that makes it one of the best rock albums of the year, and it definitely puts it in my top 10. At the number 9 spot on my list, I have College Park by Logic, and the problem that a lot of people had with this album were the skits. But in my opinion, the skits give the album a bit more personality, a bit more story, which I really appreciated. And these skits, along with a lot of the flows and the beats produced on this record, make it a really great journey in my opinion, and that's enough to put it at number 9 on the album of the year. Now at the number 8 spot on our list is probably the most creative album that I've heard this year, Pink Tape by Lil Uzi Vert. A lot of people thought that this album was all over the place, and it is. It is very all over the place. A lot of different styles on this record, but I think that that is more of a positive than a negative. There's something for everyone on here. About half the tracks are worth re-listening to, but I think as a whole album, it's a really great listen. There are some tracks that are not good, but as an experience, I think that it makes up for it. So that's good enough to put it at number 8. Now at number 7, I have Let's Start Here by Lil Yachty. Now this is a complete change of pace from his rap stuff, even though he had some excellent rap tracks later in the year. I think the songs on Let's Start Here are the king of his drops this year because it's so different from what he's done in the past, and it was all done so impressively. One of the best psych rock records I've ever heard, even though I haven't listened to that much psych rock. It was very impressive to see this switch of genres, which is why I'm putting it at number 7. On number 6 on my list, I have I Care So Much That I Don't Care At All by Glaive. Now, Glaive used to be a hyperpop artist, but has transitioned into more of a emo rock type sound, and I think it's worked out really well for him. There's a lot of catchy choruses, emotional lyrics, and loud riffs on here that seem very vulnerable and believable. And I like this album so much that I saw him live at one of the bars near my college. I'll play a clip for you right now. So what the fuck just happened? Yeah, so if you ever wonder what my singing voice sounds like, that's what it is. Not very good, but I thought the show was great. I thought the album was great, so that's why I put it at number 6 on my list. Getting into the top 5 of the year, we have Quaranta by Danny Brown. Now, this is not the last time we will see a Danny Brown album on this list, and I'm not the biggest Danny Brown fan in the world, but this album is incredible. It has a lot of emotional and genuine lyrics that we haven't really seen since Atrocity Exhibition, and the flows and the interesting beats chosen on here, as well as the features, were all incredible. So that's why I have 2 Danny Brown albums in my top 5, even though I'm not the biggest fan of him personally. At number 4 on my list, I have Utopia by Travis Scott. Had to pick up the vinyl because it was only $5, but I thought the album was incredible as well. There's a lot of memorable tracks on here, like Fiend and Hyena, and there was a lot of hype behind it since it was the first Travis Scott album we've got in 5 years. And I think that it truly lived up to the hype, and that's why I'm putting it at number 4 on this list. At number 3, we have our second Danny Brown appearance with JPEG Mafia on Scaring the Hose. I thought this album was great. I was sitting in study hall my senior year of high school listening to this album the first time, and I was blown away. Everything down to the Red Veil feature on Kingdom Hearts Key was phenomenal. A bunch of strange beats that aren't for everyone, hence the title of the album. But I thought that it was great. Another banger from JPEG Mafia. Now at the number 2 spot on my list, I have Austin by Post Malone. Now in 2022, he released an album, 12 Carat Toothache, to which many did not find to be good. I thought that it was a good album, but to the public, many thought that it was disappointing. But I think that Austin, released this year, blows it out of the water. It's not hip-hop, Post Malone goes in more of a lo-fi pop direction, and I think that works out well for him. It's loaded from front to back with some catchy lo-fi tracks that you can just sit down and relax to, and I think it's a great direction for Post Malone. I saw him live this year as well. I'll play a clip from that. I thought that was a great show as well, even though, as you could see, I was pretty far in the back on the lawn there. But a great show regardless. A really great album released after that show. That show was on July 9th. Album released on the 28th. But it's definitely one of my favorites of the year, since Post Malone is one of my favorite artists personally. Now, before I get into my number one spot, I just wanted to give some quick honorable mentions. First one up is Starcatcher by Greta Van Fleet. Now, I know Greta Van Fleet can be a bit divisive in the music community, but I personally enjoy them, and I thought that their album released this year was pretty good. Next up is 10,000 Gecs by 100 Gecs. Solid sophomore album for them. I just think that some of the tracks like Frog on the Floor can be a bit silly for me personally. Another silly album is Baby Gravy 3, which I thought was really fun, but yet again a bit too silly to put on my top 10. And then also Que Termine will be my last honorable mention. I thought that it was solid, pretty groovy, but not good enough to get into my top 10. Now finally, for my number one spot and album of the year is Wall Socket by Underscores. I thought that this album was really creepy and really creative all at the same time. There were some really catchy moments on here with songs like Locals, some really creepy moments with songs like Johnny, 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 and I was just blown away by the production on this one. One of the most well-produced albums I've heard since Hypochondriac by Breakins, another hyperpop record. I'm really big into hyperpop, if you couldn't tell. But I think that this is the number one album of the year for me, just based on how well-produced it is, how great the story is, and how catchy some of the tracks are. So, thank you guys for watching. Have a good one. And before I end this video, in the comments, if y'all could let me know what your album of the year is, I'd really appreciate it. I didn't listen to too much music this year, so I'm always looking for more recommendations. So if you guys have any good ones for me, comment it down below. And if I did listen to the album you recommended, I'll let you know what I think about it. Alright, have a good one, guys.